Heard a single set here and labeled Craftsman's favorite chainsaw carver. I thought today what I'd do is I would show you how to take this Craftsman 20-inch saw and turn it into this massive carving machine. Alright, so you take your 20-inch Craftsman professional chainsaw, you flip it over, and they've included this nice scrunch right in the handle. You're going to take that, you're going to put on the nut over the case here, and you're going to just twist it until it comes off. And that is going to reveal the clutch, chain, and the bar. And it's going to allow you to slide this bar back and pull this chain off of here. There we go. So I'm going to get rid of this bar, get rid of this chain, and the next thing we really need to do is we're going to take this clutch off, because this clutch is for 325 chain and we're going to go down to 1/4 inch chain. So what I do is I get in this little groove with the screwdriver, and I'm going to kind of tap it as if I'm going to be kind of knocking it straight that way, and it'll spin and it'll start coming off. And then it's reverse threaded, so you're just going to kind of take that off. You're going to pull this off, and there's this little needle bearing here. You're going to want to make sure that stays on. And then I went to my saw shop, and my saw guy ordered me up this little rim sprocket. And the nice thing about this is you can get different size rims for this. And if you go talk to somebody who knows chainsaws, they'll be able to hook you up with this. But you're going to want to put a 1/4 pitch rim on this, and you're going to want to slide that thing upside down there, and then you're going to want to tighten this back on, which is going to be lefty tighty if get those threads lined up. There we go. Yeah. And then we're just going to kind of get that until it's tight. You might just turn it a couple times, give it a little bit, and we're good. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a carving bar on this. And the key thing about a carving bar is you get this, like, a narrower tip. It's got a solid nose because it's smaller. But you get this narrower tip on here so you can get a little bit more detail. And then in turn you're going to need this smaller chain. I don't know if you can see the comparison here. The cutter size is quite a bit different. And the nice thing about, I guess, the 1/4 pitch chain, the reason why you'd use that is when you're going around a smaller tip, it's able to make that turn, whereas the bigger chain's not going to do that. Also, the other kind of benefit of 1/4 pitch chain is that it's a lot more aggressive. So you're going to cut a little faster and more efficiently. What I do is I slide this chain back around the back of the sprocket, and I want to make sure it's in the into the seats in the rim down there. And then I want to bring that over the top, and I want to just like line everything up in the grooves. Now, once I have it here, I want to make sure these cutters are facing forward on the top side. Real important. Otherwise, you will not be cutting wood. And then we're ready to put this case on. What we're going to do is we're going to line up this little hole down here with this little nub. Now, if you have this brand of bar I have, it's going to have this hole. It's not going to seat in there. It's going to be a little bit wide, or a little bit narrow, and it's not going to seat in there. The pin's going to be too wide. So what I end up doing is I'll take that over to my bench vise, and I'll lock that thing in. I just take a big round file, and I'm just going to just widen this thing out a little bit. You could mark it with your other bar, your 20-inch bar, and do that. Whatever you're most comfortable with, but I just make that a little bit bigger, and then the pin will slide in there. And I've done that on the bar that's on the chainsaw. And so you can see once I put this top on, it's just going to slide right in. And basically this part of the case is going to meet the bar right there, and that's real important. And the bar should be nice and stiff in there. So once you get all that together, you're going to put the nut on. And then what I do is I set it upright again, and I pull it down on the bottom of the chain, and as you can see there's a lot of slack there. So I'm going to just take, there's a little tensioner adjustment here, and I'm going to tighten this thing up. And if it's a new chain, I might tighten it right up to there. And then, you know, tighten this nut. I'll start it, I'll run it in a piece of wood for like a minute or two. And then I'll bring it back in, and usually the new chain's stretched pretty well, and it's probably looking like this when you come in. And then I'm going to readjust it to where I like to run it. Everybody's got their own opinion on this, but I like it where these drive links are just seated right in the groove, but there's still a little bit of slack there. So it still can guide the chain. You know, it's not completely out of the groove, but there's still a little bit of slack in there. And the importance of that is when you're running these carving bars, you don't want it too tight or it'll actually fork the end because there's no sprocket there. And you know, burn this bar out really fast. It'll start eating away at the bar. It'll make little marks in there, and you'll have a lot of problems quickly. The other thing is, if you have this too loose, what happens is it will come around this tip, and then it will be real slack, and it'll do this thing called slapback, where it actually comes back this way, and it'll start gouging out this bottom end of the bar here. So you're just going to want to make sure that this is adjusted, and you want to check that quite often. Every gas, you know, every fill of gas, I check that. Or if I feel like this thing is coming out, if I see it down there coming out of the groove, I'll probably stop and adjust it. It's that important. One thing to consider is, you know, why not just use this stock bar? Why use a carving bar? And the main reason is this zone from the kind of the middle of the bar here, the round, all the way back to the top of the round is called the kickback zone. Kickback is when a chainsaw basically comes flying right back at you. It can be real dramatic. It can kind of give you a jolt. It's a little scary when you first start running a chainsaw. But for that to happen, you need to have two teeth engaged on this back edge here. And so on a regular stock bar, it's pretty easy to get that to happen because the gap between the two cutters is small enough, or I guess the length of this is long enough that the gap it's possible. So it can happen. Whereas, see, on a carving bar, this one is right on the edge of the middle here, and this one's already past that zone. And so they don't tend to kick as much, and even when they do kick back, it's not as hard. So do yourself a favor, get a carving bar. It's just so much safer. Alright, so that's how you take your Craftsman 20-inch professional chainsaw and turn it into a carving machine. Now let's take this bad boy out and get moving.